What is going on, guys? Welcome to another video. Now there's a topic that I really want to deep dive in today. So for those of you who don't know, I play out of Hawaii players, as well as any Oceania region players, do not have a server to connect to. The closest server that we can connect to is going to be California, whether it be the LA servers or the San Francisco servers, but nonetheless we don't have one here. There's a stigma to say that Hawaii players are bot players. There used to be that saying where, hey, if you connect to a Hawaii lobby, it's going to be a bot lobby. The reason why there's that stigma is because we have to connect to a server that is far from us. Sometimes even with skill-based matchmaking and engagement optimized matchmaking, it doesn't even take us to the California servers. It'll take us somewhere central like in Ohio, or even all the way east coast such as Florida. But come on, guys, come on, we heard it all, right? Why does it matter? All we have to do is just get a wired internet connection. All we have to do is just upgrade our internet. Boom, we're gonna have the same low ping as every other player out there. So help me God, I wish it was that easy. And that's the main reason for this video today. I just want to have players have a more clear understanding of what it means to have good connection in Call of Duty, why every single player does not have the ability to have that same good connection, whether they have good internet or not, whether they're wired in or not, and how this connection really affects someone's gameplay on a competitive level. If players truly understood what connection is in Call of Duty, they would understand why they still died even though they made it around the corner and they thought they weren't getting shot, or how they still lost that fight even though that they had the drop on them in the first place. Or sometimes you could literally empty an entire mag into somebody, but they just turn around, shoot you with a couple of bullets, and boom, you're the one that loses. We're going to be answering all of that today. But let's take it all the way back to the beginning, right? I want to talk about how Call of Duty originally started, how they connected their players into the lobby. Now, dedicated servers were only implemented at the start of Call of Duty Ghost. Any game title after Call of Duty Ghost release was switched to dedicated servers. Before that, they used to do P2P, aka peer-to-peer hosted lobbies. So the way peer-to-peer hosted lobbies work is that there'll be one player that the game decides to consider as a host. Whatever, it doesn't matter what region of the world, right? It'll be a player in California, player in East Coast, player in Central, whatever, maybe player in Hawaii. And any player that connects to that host is either going to share the same connection or have better or worse connection depending on the distance to that host. So to keep it very simple, if a player in California was the one hosted for the lobby, any California player is going to share the same low connection, while anybody else that, unfortunately is outside of California, whether it be a Hawaii player or somewhere on the East Coast, right, they can still connect to the one in California. It doesn't always happen, but due to low player counts on certain time of the days, that will happen. So those players are not going to have the same low connection because of the distance that they are to California. So to have a really good example is that, remember in Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 1, where during the scoreboard you could actually see the connection meter, right? You can see it going from red to yellow to orange to green. And haven't you ever noticed that when you were in green, you performed very well? All your shots registered, you felt like a god, you felt like a really good player in that match. But the moment it started to turn yellow, orange, red, right, your shots were suddenly missing. You thought you made it around the corner, but you didn't, and you still died. It's because when the host migrated to another player, whether it be in the next match or during the match, it changed it where it was no longer the Cali player hosting that match. It was somebody that was farther from you. Essentially, you lost host connection, and by that time players would just start to leave because, okay, you know what, my connection isn't good anymore, let me go to another lobby that I can get host connection. And then also too, with peer-to-peer hosted lobbies, there was also a security risk. There was ways that players could exploit peer-to-peer hosting that would essentially commandeer the lobby or effectively hurt other players in a malicious way. So that's another reason why they migrated away from peer-to-peer lobbies. So fast forward now, they migrated to dedicated servers. Now dedicated servers, in the long term, it is really great. Unfortunately, it would have been awesome if they had dedicated servers for all players in the region. What happens now is that for any player that lives close to a server location, they're still going to have great connection consistently. But for all the players that don't have a server in their region, aka Hawaii players, we get the short end of the stick because of our distance to the servers. We are always going to have higher ping than majority of the players in the match. Now, I know you guys are going to come after me for this because I always get it every time I post content and very similar things talking about low ping players. I am not saying that you're only good because you have low ping. Do not get that mixed up. Whether you have low ping, whether you have high ping, if you have the skills to prove it, that doesn't say that you are not a skilled player just because you have low ping. I am simply stating that when it comes to an even online playing field, you do have the advantage and you need to realize that. Oh, Noble, what about peaker's advantage? What about lag compensation? High ping players have that advantage. First of all, peaker's advantage benefits both high ping players and low ping players. The player that takes specific advantage of peaker's advantage is the peaker itself. Second, with lag compensation, the only thing that the lag compensation system does, it does not benefit the high ping player. It only creates and record actions in the game that it's supposed to accurately show. So because low ping players have all their shots register faster, their movement register first on the server, guess what the server is going to record for accuracy? The low ping player, the player where their actions are going to be seen first on the server. But I digress. Let's not make this a whole low ping versus high ping debate on this. This is not the YouTube video for that. Now, there are two main things that you need to understand. You need to understand ping and you need to understand tick rate for the servers. To simplify, ping is the speed of a player's connection to the server. So essentially how fast their shot registration, their movement, any action that they take on their end, in them sitting in the chair, reaching to the server and the server reflecting that action, aka in the game. Now, there are factors that can lower the ping. It would be internet service quality. It would be if you're a console or computer, you could specifically VPN and geolock yourself to the closest server. But in the end, majority of that ping connection that separates you from getting 10 ping to 100 ping is the geographical distance that that player has to a server. Even though data travels at a very fast rate on the internet, wouldn't you think that the amount of distance, say a California player that reaches a California server, which is probably only within 10 miles of where they live, you compare that to a Hawaii player that has to have their data travel 2,000 miles to the California server. Because of that sheer distance, that's the reason why data takes longer to travel. But ping is not the only thing you take into account. Now you look at server tick rates. Now, server tick rates is the speed in which the server receives that information and updates that into the game. It doesn't immediately go into the game. It has to receive it, then the game has to update information to put it into the game. So when they say that Call of Duty has 20 Hertz tick rate servers, what that means is that the server is updating 1/20th second of a time. Now, if you want to convert that into milliseconds, right, to connect it with latency, 1/20th of a second is 50 milliseconds. So for example's sake, if you truly wanted to know your connection speed to a server and how long it takes for your actions to connect to the server, let's say example, you have a 50 millisecond latency. But because of that server tick rate cycle, right, it's 1/20th second of a time. So it could either range between 1 millisecond more on top of your 50 or a full 50 milliseconds more on top of your 50. So your actions you take as a player can be as fast as 51 milliseconds, or it could be the full 100 milliseconds because of your 50 millisecond latency and the 50 millisecond server tick rate. All right, so I made an illustrated example. Now, excuse the kindergarten image work, I am sorry, but let's look at it right here. This is the best visual explanation that I could give. So you look at player A and you look at player B. Now, this 10 milliseconds is the player A's speed connection where their data travels to the server in game, compared to player B where there is 100 milliseconds. That player is taking longer for his data to travel. And let's put themselves into the same scenario where they're both very skilled players, right? They have the same meta gun loadouts and they meet on the same open field, whether it be an actual open field, an open room, aka they don't have any cover to move behind or to use movement to their advantage. If both players shoot each other at the same time and both guns have the same TTK speed, who do you think is going to get downed first? If you guys guess player B, that is correct. Why is that though? Player A has 10 milliseconds. That means all of their shot, all of their data traveled and hit the server first, aka their shots landed first. Even though they both shot at the same time, have the same gun, have the same skill set where they probably shot both each other at the chest, player A is still going to win. Is it because he has more skill? No, because he has the higher advantage in having low ping. Now let's take it to the next example of being shot even though you're around the corner, right? If player B has a high 100 milliseconds, right, and they come around the corner, that physical location of them being around the corner in cover still takes 100 milliseconds to reflect that on the server. But on player A's end, if they're the ones shooting them before they get around the corner, right, because their movement didn't register around the corner yet, player A still has a 90 millisecond advantage to land a couple more shots before he gets around that corner. That's the reason why you still die despite making it to cover. Or the other scenario that I talked about, right, where you emptied a mag into someone first and for whatever reason they still turn around and manage to shoot you. It's because that mag that you entered into player A probably noticed them getting shot, and connection works both ways. So for example, if something happened in the server, it's still going to take 100 milliseconds for player B to see what actually happened in the server. By the time player B sees player A's actions, player A probably already turned around, slide canceled out of his fire, and landed probably more than half the mag into player B before he even realizes it. That is why an overall majority of the time, I'm not saying every single time, majority of the time, having low ping is an advantage in the game. Can we blame players for that? No, we can't blame them for them being close to the server. What we can blame is that Activision's lack of wanting to add more servers for other players that are out of that region. Unfortunately, the only reason I can think of why Activision doesn't add more servers is because one, it costs too much to add servers, and two, they're not going to invest the money to add servers in a region where the player count isn't necessarily high. We don't have a lot of players that are playing in the Oceania region. We don't have a lot of players that are playing in the South African region. Why are they going to spend money for, you know, X amount of players? It's unfortunate, but it's business at the end of the day. So I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but that's what it is. It really comes down to what's the solution. The only solution is waiting till Activision stops being greedy with their cash and actually invests to create a better experience for all players, not just majority of the players. I know this was a long video, guys, and if you did stick out with me and you did learn a thing or two about connection and why certain situations happen in the game and you feel so confused and you no longer feel confused about it, hey, I'm glad. This is a good video for you then. If anything, guys, if you did like the video, please drop a like on it. It helps tremendously in the algorithm. And if you do like the content overall, drop a sub to the channel. We'd love to see you here for the next video. All right. As always, stay pure, stay noble, and hashtag bring back honest gaming. All right. Later, guys.